How's it going, everyone? Runt9 here, and welcome back to another episode of Runt9 Plays. Today we'll be diving into building a city in Cities Skylines, the city building sim from Paradox Interactive in Colossal Order. I've been playing this game for a few years, off and on. I don't have a ton of hours in it. I'm sitting right around 100, which really, if anyone has ever played any sort of Paradox game before, you know that 100 hours is not a lot. There's a lot of depth to this game. I am running some mods as well. Some of the more common ones you'll see, like Network Extensions 2, Traffic Manager President Edition, that kind of stuff. A couple more thrown in there that you may not have seen before. Things like Real Time, which, as you'll see down here, actually gives you a bit more of a real day-night cycle kind of thing, as far as there's rush hour and there's the lunch hour, and on the weekends there's a bit more activity in your tourist and leisure districts and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, we're starting off on the Sandy Beach map, which is, you know, I feel like it has some pros and cons. I mean, for one, you start off with just this tiny sliver of water here, which makes it a little difficult for your water pumps and whatnot. But what I really like about it, and one of the immediate ideas I had when I loaded this map up, is I saw this island out here. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with Texas, but in Texas there is Galveston Island, which is just off of the coast south of Houston. And it just, I don't know, it kind of immediately reminded me of that, made me think that I want to turn this island into our tourism district later on in the game. But starting right off the bat, something I haven't done before and I've kind of had floating around in my head is starting off with building a circular city from the very beginning. Now, granted, we've got a coastline here that isn't a perfect circle, and obviously this is not going to fit into a perfect circle. But I've kind of had this thought for a while. It's potentially going to end up being absolutely terrible for traffic and everything else, but I think that with some public transit, some thorough usage of Traffic Manager President Edition, let me not stumble over my English language there, I think that it could be a whole lot of fun. So let's go ahead and dive in. First things first, anytime you load up a new city, is you have to build a 40 construction cost road and then immediately bulldoze it to unlock the next set of roads. Also, one thing I did look at is we'll be able to get this whole island with our third tile purchase and connect it up to this highway with our fourth tile purchase. So before we get our fourth tile, it'll be a little bit of a hassle going through here. But I think it'll still be okay that we can kind of divert traffic this way until we can bring the highway down here. So right out of the gate, I'm going to say that wind power is probably not going to be the route that we want to go, because eventually I'm going to want to leverage this section down here for high land value houses. In fact, I think that most of this coastline here is going to be going for land value and residential space. What I will say, however, is before we get started, we need to dive into the options real quick, because it's a new map, which means Traffic Manager President Edition settings need to be set. I like setting reckless driving to rush hour. I like these as well. Advanced vehicle AI, dynamic lane selection all the way up. I've played with the parking AI a lot and have decided that I do not like it. It definitely adds a bit more realism. In fact, a lot more realism, but it lags the game a bit, and also I just kind of don't like dealing with parking management on top of everything else. I like that one. Let's start with can do U-turns, may turn at red traffic lights, and that one as well. Cannot change lanes at junctions and follow priority rules with timed traffic lights. Bump that up to high. And all of these are just settings that I've set on quite a few cities at this point. Banning on private cars on bus lanes, highway specific. Yep, want all of those. Overlays, not too concerned about that, although I'll probably play with those later, depending upon how deep we get into it. The electric roads mod, we're gonna try to use this one. I haven't used this mod before, but basically it runs power lines along your roads rather underground. So basically roads provide power to your network. Zoning tool set, I don't think we need to do anything with. Network extension. CSL Map View is a fun little mod that we will use to export maps of our city. And I'll probably show those at the end of every episode so we can kind of see how our city has grown over time from a realistic Google Maps looking map view. I think real time we need to adjust a couple of things. So set those. These are my defaults. I like running construction speed at 75% because I feel like 50% is a bit too low. And then I don't mess with anything else. Otherwise, I think that's all of the mod options we need to set. So let's dive right in. I think that I'm going to want to start off with this first circle should probably be pretty big. So I think I want to do 6-lane, but I want to have a median on it. And this won't come into effect right away, but you'll see why I want it later. So I'm going to... You know, I think I don't want it to dive directly into the circle, but it does need to start off with a pretty big loop. We could probably fit one more along the highway later. But I think that the way I want to start right now is let's first bring these down. Where's a 3-lane one-way? We're going to want to bring this into a normal 6-lane, and then we'll merge it down as necessary from there. So right about there, and then we'll merge the lanes down into a much smaller road as it passes through the circle. Let's grab the 3-lane one-way and curve this about like that, then curve this about like that. All right, that works perfectly there. And then immediately go in and make it to where you cannot U-turn here. Like everyone must go that direction, and everyone can already go that direction, so that's perfect. Because we want people coming into the city to come this way, and then they can go in and U-turn somewhere else if need be. So I think this is where we're going to start building our first circle. It is going to be pretty massive, so I'm a little bit concerned about money early on in the game, and because of that, it's probably going to be difficult for city services right off the bat. But I think this particular circle is going to be 8 units, 80 units, I should say. 80 by 80. What does that look like if we go down to an 80 by 80 circle? Obviously, that's a gigantic construction cost. 20,000. We don't really have the money to afford that at the moment. So unfortunately, I hadn't thought about the money aspect too terribly much, but I think what I'm going to do is operate under the assumption that if we do, let's see here, what else is the same size as 6-lane with median? 4-lane roads with turning lanes, 4-lane road here. How much cheaper is this to do an 80 unit? Oh, not quite. And we go down here, 80 there. That is around a third the cost, but we can upgrade it later. So I think that's what I'm going to do. We'll come down 80 units here. And we're not going to be able to, I think it is just outside city limits. Of course it is. So this is going to be, can we go 79 and make it quote unquote close enough? Looks like we can. We're just not going to be able to zone anything over there, which is perfectly fine. We'll go 80 units and then we'll come back around. Obviously that was very expensive and we need to fill in the inner parts of the circle. But what this allows us to do is segment the way that the city gets built. Now I am going to immediately plop down a water tower here where the noise won't cause any issues. We're going to drop one of these down here, throw some water lines up there. Well, actually, let's take this down here and then around our circle. This may not necessarily be the most efficient way to water our first circle. Also, the name of the city isn't Los Vegas, which is also completely the wrong way to do that. I mean, Vegas is feminine in Spanish, whereas Los is for masculine terms or nouns in Spanish. So that name isn't even right. But this is actually going to be called the city of Pyradian, because pi and radian are both circular terms, and I like to think that because it's Easter, I'm going to be the Easter punny today, and that just makes perfect sense to me. All right, so we've got that watered. We need to bring this into the water line there. Now, coal power plant, we have to figure out how our zoning is going to be, and I think that we can drop the coal power plant down here, surround it with some commercial, and keep some residential up to the north. I'm not sure if I like that, but we'll kind of have to see how it goes. I think it may be better, though, to have it near the highway and kind of have this quadrant of the circle be industry, surrounded on both sides with commercial to some extent, and then fill in this side with residential. I think that's what I'm going to do here, is I'll drop the coal power plant down here, run some power lines up here, and we're going to need to run power lines all the way up there, which we do not quite have the money for. Wonderful. Well, that's always fun when I make those kinds of mistakes. Actually, we have electric roads, so I don't think I needed to do that. If I go to this view, does it properly run electric through the road? I can't quite tell. Let's go check the options and make sure that I have enabled it properly. So this should be all of the network extensions roads should conduct electricity. So if I actually go in here and delete that, does this have electricity? Let's go up to 3 times speed for a moment. It looks like it does. So it may not show it on here. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. So we can just run this right up to the road. And I think that'll work. Maybe. No, it won't. So we're going to want to put our first residence right here so that the power spreads down there. And with the real-time mod, it does take a moment for them to move in. But now that's spreading power. Perfect. Okay. That's exactly what we wanted. We are going to be losing some money right off the bat. That's perfectly fine. So we've got power spreading, and then we're going to just kind of lay out the first little bit here. I think that I want residential to be probably that amount or so. And then we'll come in and fill these in properly like this. And I want to mix in some commercial. So let's actually dezone about right there. Yeah, that should be good. And then zone that all as commercial. And then we'll do some commercial here, down through this section. Don't want it there. I would like it to be along that part of the road. And we'll probably do this all the way up to the highway. Which actually, I'm going to break out my zoning changer, I guess, and see if I can remove the zoning from those and from that to make the zoning a bit better there. And then we will go back to commercial zoning and zone it off to that point. Then we're going to zone off some industrial here. And then fill this in on this side. And then we'll figure out how we want to lay out the rest of this once the demand starts kind of telling us what we need. So again, everything is watered, everything is powered because of the roads, which again, I just don't like seeing power lines running everywhere. I think it's ugly, it messes with the aesthetic, and honestly, once you get past the initial little suburban areas, oh man, the rocks in the road. I don't know why that's been happening. Once you get past the initial suburban areas, it's pretty unrealistic actually to have power lines running everywhere. They tend to run in between cities, but aren't sitting there inside the city connecting parts that just barely don't have underground connections. You won't see that too terribly often. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bust out Move It here and try to get rid of rocks specifically. I think it's going to be props here. I just do a big selection there. Does that get the rocks? It looks like that will get rid of all of the rocks. It's not that I don't like rocks, it's that they're kind of in my way. And I don't like seeing all of those rocks on the road. That's something that's been happening. If you happen to watch Move the Mouse, who is a YouTuber that I highly recommend watching for his YouTube series, multiple YouTube series on City Skylines, he has been running into the same problem with his PC streams, and I guess it's not just him, because I totally just ran into it there. We've got some industry moving in, and our residences are coming in fine down here. I think that we've got a little bit of commercial there. I am curious to see how it ends up expanding. Now it'll take a little bit for things to start filling in, and again, I don't know exactly what I want to do over here yet. Again, it'll kind of all come down to demand. We'll fill this in as necessary. We may throw some more residences in here and all that. Like I said, I'm going to want this to be a tourism district, and I'm probably going to want a city center for leisure as we get a little bit further along. But of course, we have to start small. That's kind of the way the game goes. But I do think that we can do a lot of cool things with a circular city like this. And so I have a hotkey for traffic. This is something you'll learn about me is I love the traffic management in City Skylines. It makes me very happy, and I am constantly checking traffic. In fact, I also want to make sure that there's not a traffic light here. For the moment, we'll just leave it as an open intersection. It's not going to work long term, I can guarantee you that, and we're going to end up wanting to... Well, one of the things that I wanted to do with this circular city as well, and you'll see that this is the start of it, is no four-way intersections. All right, we've already reached Little Hamlet, which means that we've unlocked healthcare and garbage, so we'll need to drop those in. I'll probably go straight for recycling center instead of landfill site, just because it gives us more flexibility if we need to move stuff around in the future. Med clinic will be interesting to figure out where it goes. But I think first things first, let's pause. Let's, well, we don't have the money for recycling center because we need to take out a loan, which we will immediately do. We will bump the taxes up on these to 12%, which everyone seems to have their own number, but it seems like from what I've heard watching other people play and from personal experience that seems to be a good number for maximizing the growth potential and income potential of your city simultaneously. So we're going to drop in a recycling center there and a med clinic down here. And that'll cover a lot of ground if we put one right about there. And then we don't have enough money for an elementary school, but that will hopefully change here pretty soon. Let's go back up to 3 times speed. So things are filling in. We've got some residential demand. I do think that we're going to want to zone off some more residences down here. Probably don't need a ton of them, but that should be plenty for now. And again, we're definitely going to want to make sure we have a commercial buffer up here, but I don't know how long the industry section needs to be. We've actually got some industry demand right now, so that tells me it needs to be longer than it currently is. And at some point, we'll want to expand and build our first inner ring as well. Definitely something we need to be considering here pretty soon. But first things first, get an elementary school plopped down right here, which will cover most of our existing residences. Again, we've got some residences up here that I don't believe are covered by medical either. So that is the issue with this type of city, is starting out, it is a little bit difficult to get the city services managed. But once you start building the interior rings, it starts making a lot more sense as to how things should be laid out. We're already running into a little bit of a traffic problem there with the pedestrian crossings. May not be a bad idea to go straight for a raised path pretty quickly on that. But until I see it become a bigger problem, I'm not going to worry too much about it. So residential demand is definitely like still through the roof right now, but we are using the real-time mod, so things have a limit on how many things can be constructed at a time. And as you saw from the settings menu, there is a limit on the amount of speed at which they can be built. Right now it's at 75% of the normal build rate. And just keeping an eye on traffic. I mean, it should be fine. It's going to take thousands of people before a single ring road can't handle everything. All right, so we can buy a new area. We're growing quick. Grab our second loan, start painting some districts, emergency services, and police. I think this is where we're going to want to do our first interior ring. We can take out our first really big loan here of 60K, and I think that we're going to want to immediately do another ring. So again, I'm going to stick with the 4-lane roads. We're going to do 2-lane roads for the moment. And I think what I want to do is, again, not having 4-way intersections. So we're going to want to come off from the corners here. I say corners, it's a circle. There's no such thing as corners in a circle. I'm a madman. But I think in this case, if we come off at the 45-degree directions, roughly, then we'll alternate 45 degrees off of each other until we get down into our city center ring. And then it's just a matter of how dense do we want it to be. And I think that I want to try to pack it as densely as possible to kind of see how it looks. So let's start from maybe right there. Looks good. And let's go in, this is going to be a straight road. Let's go in 20 units maybe, and then do a road off of that, or do we want to try for 10? I think that 10 may not quite work, so we're going to go for 12 and see how that goes. And so we're going to go back over here, grab this, go back to our curve tool, and this curve is going to be a little interesting. So actually what I think I'm going to do is go ahead and try to mimic this over here, which is going to come down from about that down 12 units. And then we're going to try to make this somewhat even. It may not be perfect, and if those of you out there have seen some of my other videos, there are definitely times where I don't do things the most optimal way. This is definitely not perfectly even, but I think it will be good enough. So let's try to curve this in such a way. Oh, our zoning's going to be perfect. We may actually want to build it the wrong way. In fact, maybe I'm thinking about this wrong. Maybe I do want to come down like this and then just come out, what would that be, 68 units, and come down like so. 68 units would be right about there. Yep, that's actually the way I want to do it. So we wasted a little bit of money on that, but this is actually going to be the better way to do it, and then we'll hook it up afterwards. So again, I haven't built a circular city before, so everyone, you're kind of going on an adventure with me here, but I think that it's going to be a fun adventure. So let's see what 70 units by 70 looks like. So we've got some overlapping zoning. Yeah, Yeah, I would prefer not to have overlapping zoning. So let's actually try for 68 by 68 and see what that looks like. That looks to be the perfect density. I love it. So we're going to do that. We're going to come down another 68 units. And I think that's probably because I did 12 units at the top side, roughly. Do 68 there by 68, or it may be because these roads are a little bit wider. That's not perfect zoning there because, and I totally forgot about this, our circle is 1 unit off on that side, which we had to do because of size constraints. So we actually need to come out 67 by 67, I believe it was. Yes, that gives us perfect zoning, so it should be another 67 up here by 67, connect that in, and there you go, you've got perfect zoning. And then, like I said, we'll kind of hook these up with some 2-lane roads right here, which will just go like so. We'll grab this right around that mark into there. Here we'll come down off of there to there, keeping it at 90-degree angles. And this will greatly minimize the amount of intersections and should greatly minimize the amount of traffic that we have on these internal rings. Now the question is, do we want to go ahead? Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if we really should build another ring right now, because this is going to be super dense and is definitely good for us. And if we look at, say, like garbage coverage, our garbage coverage is still perfect. Medical coverage down here is still fine, although putting it on one of the internal rings may be a better idea. Emergency services, we're going to probably want on an internal ring. We put it right here, though, and so I can definitely see where the efficiency of this is going to break down in the long run, but fire is definitely something you want coverage perfectly spread throughout your whole city. We may want to mess with the budget to make this better. At least for the moment, I think what I'm going to do is have one right up here by the highway. I'm going to blow out a couple of buildings to do that. We're going to do the same thing with police. Do you hear that? Whoop, whoop. That's the sound of the police. And I think that this should probably go right there for the moment. We have the one elementary school, which is fine. We need to water the internal loop as well. So we'll come up, should be 22 units or so, and then we'll just kind of work our way around the same pattern we did before. And eventually, I mean, again, I think that a water grid may be the correct way to do this, but I kind of like the whole circular water pipe thing. All right, let's go with that, and let's also go ahead and throw some more of our zoning here. And if we do it like this, oh man, why is this all sorts of funky? Probably because of the rock there. Not Dwayne Johnson, that was actually a legitimate rock on the road. And then we'll fill this in, and we'll probably, stagger residences and commercial a little bit. But I think for these first 2 loops, we'll probably continue to do it this way. Nope, not that way. This way. And, there probably exists a better way to do this, but sometimes I'm all about efficiency, and other times I'm just about getting it done. The life of a programmer. That's kind of the way things are. Sometimes you just got to get things done. We'll go ahead and use the paint tool. I feel like this is going to be the better way to do it, and it seems like that was a good way to do it. And now we can easily marquee tool our commercial there, our industry not there, our commercial here, And we'll probably want to do a big commercial pocket down to about right there. That worked out pretty well. We'll probably end up wanting to fill in more of this with industrial down there. Yeah, let's do commercial inside. Nope, not that far in. Commercial there. And then let's fill in industry along this route internally. One thing of note, however, is I actually, and this is part of the reason I grabbed this mod, is I want to disable zoning on these side streets. These should only do one thing and one thing only. Kind of like One Ping and One Ping Only from the great movie Tom Clancy's Red October with Sean Connery. These roads should only be used to bring traffic further into the city. I don't want zoning along them. I don't want people parking on those streets. I really just want to keep them focused on people going further and further into the city. And I know that the routes that people take will be a little lengthy, which will hopefully mean that people want to leverage public transit later on. But at least for the moment, I'm kind of hoping that we can get away with not zoning anything on them and only having 2-lane roads, because it's going to be a lot more expensive and a lot weirder to have to upgrade these. So anyways, I think this is a great stopping point for our first episode. I am really happy with how this is looking so far. This is exactly what I had in mind, other than this being 1 unit off over here, so it's a little bit of an oblong circle, which will really kind of show its ugly head once we get into the city center. But I have to say, I'm really excited about this build so far, everyone. So this is probably going to be a pretty lengthy season as well, since this city is going to have a lot of interesting things that we need to do to it. For example, like I said, our big tourism island. So anyways, again, this is the punny city of Pyradian. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit me with a like or a comment. It helps out a lot. Also, subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Check out the community Discord to connect with me directly. And if you're interested in donating to my channel, there's a Patreon link in the description. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will catch you on the next one.